And we are rolling. This is Skrizzly with Skrizz and Adam, The Rise. Adam, how are you doing?
I am doing good as always. How are you doing today?
Doing good, can't complain. So on the drive-in today, I thought something we could talk about. You turned 30 a month ago, and I am turning 30 in 1 month. So I think there's two ways to look at this. We could talk about, I want to talk about 20s. I think 20s is like a really interesting age to talk about. Obviously, like being a human being, but more so just from the filter of this podcast is being an entrepreneur, being a business owner in your 20s. So if we divide it into two sections, early 20s and late 20s, for you, what would you say is the biggest difference between early 20s Adam, the entrepreneur and business owner, and late 20s Adam, the business owner and entrepreneur?
Biggest thing from the early 20s is I was like the ultimate dreamer. Just the dreamer. The biggest negativity with that, though, it wasn't being a dreamer backed by practicality. And that's the biggest thing that's taken me from the beginning part of my 20s to the end of my 20s and now into my 30s is I'm still a dreamer. I'll always be a dreamer. I think that's where a lot of my passion and emotion comes from. But now it's much more backed, I should say, by practicality.
Okay, so my question for that is, and it could be both, does that affect your ceiling and the output of what you're going for, or does that affect the starting point and input of it? Definitely the starting point, because if you're saying you're applying more logic in your late 20s to your dreams, you're obviously approaching it differently, more logically. Like the analogy of like you're not just throwing a million darts, you are aiming and being a little more intelligent. But have you noticed that your ceilings have lowered, or are you still billionaire bust, as you say?
Yeah, ceiling is still as high as it's ever been. Okay. That still has not changed. But like you just said, how I start and how I go along the journey, especially in the beginning, is very different. Where I know, hey, here's where I want to go, but there's going to be 57 different milestones that I got to get to in order to get there.
For sure. Okay, so I'll segue that to me. I think that might be the biggest thing, where it's like understanding that if you're at A and you're trying to get to Z, there's an entire alphabet in between that you're trying to get to, and then realizing that getting to B is fucking impossible, and getting to C is also fucking impossible. Getting to D is also impossible, but if you get to Z, it's amazing. So it's like you are alive, and say you were alive for 50 years, you might as well kind of go for it. I think it's like, I was thinking about it. It's like in my late 20s, I don't want to say I've dealt better with patience, because I still feel like I'm impatient as fuck all the time. I have like terrible patience, and I'm just like, what can we do all the time? Just like neurotic as hell. But I think it's understanding, like, it's coming to terms with that everything that's like profoundly rewarding is an extreme process. I was talking with someone on my management team, and they're giving me a compliment. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but they were saying like, you're easy to deal with because like everything that someone brings to me, it's not good news or bad news. It's just news, and news is always going to be progress. Whereas in my early 20s, that was definitely not the case, because I was getting bad news every day. And every time I got bad news, I'm like, well, this is an L. Like, this sucks. This is a failure. I'm 5 steps back. Whereas now it's like, okay, we have a deal, or there's some type of collaboration that's going to be in the works, whether it's professional or creative, and then maybe someone doesn't work. Think of it like a romantic relationship. If I want to be with her and she wants to be with me, then let's be together. If I want to be with her and she doesn't want to be with me, she's a fucking idiot, and I don't want to work with a fucking idiot. Right. So that's kind of the mentality I have with everything. So with that being said, like, you're weeding out situations that weren't even going to work, you know? I'm definitely not that person that's going to like beat on someone's door and be like, you have to do this, this has to happen. Because that's not gonna work.
Well, what do you? So you said patience, and I'm like you in that same way, where like I want it, and I want it now. And I've been trying to tone down my patience and look more about like the steps that need to go along the journey. I think we all get confused where we see these major success stories, and we think it's an overnight success. And there's no such thing as a true overnight success. But what would you say for you, music-wise, has been the biggest difference between how you approached your early 20s versus late 20s with patience in mind?
All right, so I think obviously there's like a personal growth element to this, but it has more to do with just the circumstances of being an artist who owns their business. I think we were talking about it earlier, where it's like there's something about being a new business that has like a phenomenon factor to it, where it's like you can be the new kid in town and you can get really lucky, and so many people will bet on that horse just because you are the new kid in town. And like the analogy I made for that was that like there is a moment in the morning on 7th Avenue in New York City where if all the lights go green, you can just do all that, or you're going to hit a red light and then a red light and then a red light. So like there is a window that kind of happens to beginners. And I think there were a lot of business moves I made that tried to capitalize off that, but it never really panned out. You know what I mean? So once you kind of accept that in the business, you realize, I mean, a lot of this has to do with like the changing of the streaming industry and a lot of things like that, that if you kind of just chip away at what you're doing, I mean, it can just keep expanding. It's a thing like that.
Well, when I hear you saying that, one of my biggest constant focus is around don't cut corners, and it's something that I used to do a lot more of, and now I try to stay away from.
Give me an example of where you cut corners earlier.
Yeah, so like an example, when we built our first technology, we said let's just hire a consultant to build it in a really simple, cheap way. Exactly, just kind of hack it together.
And then you're gonna have mad problems in the back end.
Exactly, and then so you have it hacked together, but then it's like bug after bug after bug.
Yeah, so
and you're just constantly cleaning up your mess.
Where you should have just paid a top-notch guy. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
So like cutting corner wise, do you feel like you cut more corners in the beginning trying to like hack your way to success? And I guess I don't really know. Maybe you could hack it in the music industry where you're like, I'm just going to.
So this is definitely not that.
Okay.
Good. Definitely a good thought, but I definitely never cut any corners, but it was more that like, if I had like 10 eggs in a basket, I wanted all of them to hatch. You know what I mean? And then I realized, I would write a song. I'm like, well, this is going to win Song of the Year at the Grammys, obviously. So I was like, this has to happen. When then I'm realizing, like, no, you can write 100 songs, and the universe is going to play out like the universe is going to play out. Or it's like, it's almost, actually, I'm just realizing now that it's like, I was trying to control everything. Because I made the first, like I created it, I thought I could control the outcome. And I was wrong 100% of the time, like 100% of the time. And then like, as I got older, I was like, well, I can control the creation process. And I'm already way ahead of everyone else because they can't do that. So why don't we just get really, 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 really good at doing that? You know what I mean? I saw the Jordan. Did we talk about the Jordan doc before? I feel like I talk about that a lot. Probably talked about the Jordan.
I know we
doc.
mentioned it, but go
Jordan
ahead.
doc.
I can never talk too much Jordan.
The Jordan doc, like, I mean, it's such a simple philosophy, and he just said it so simply. He's like, obviously, he's the best basketball player ever, so he has that going for him. But it's like
that's a pretty controversial thing you just said.
Okay, we're not going there. We're definitely not going there. But he said,
I'm Team Jordan, by the way.
Okay.
Keep going.
Greatness has nothing to do with ability. Greatness, you know. So he was saying that his business, like, he wasn't micromanaging business. He wasn't doing. I mean, it's actually not that much different than like a Warren Buffett type. He's not micromanaging business at all. He's just like, everything that comes from me financially is derived from me kicking ass on the fucking basketball court. Like everything stems from that. So while I'm in my prime, I'm going to be the absolute best at that. And with that, obviously, we saw the Jordans become a multi-billion-dollar like, just so much happened. And I think he still is like number one financially because of all of that. And that's kind of what came to me is like, I'm able. Sometimes you think like, I think a lot of people probably think this about me. It's like, I'm like, oh, I can write songs, I can sing, I can play a show, and then it's like, oh, we're just gonna go on autopilot, and then like go on autopilot and just do it a bunch and make really smart business moves. And it's like actually very much the opposite, where it's like no, like, I mean, I am an athlete. Like, I'm trying to be the absolute best singer I can be. I'm trying to be the absolute best like songwriter, the absolute best producer. Everything I touch, I want it to be the best it can be. And then from there, it's like you're actually more on the reaction. You're like, okay, this comes my way. This opportunity comes my way. Like, how am I going to handle it that best suits me being the athlete? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Biggest takeaway from what you're saying is that as entrepreneurs, as musicians, probably, I don't have that experience, but I can imagine, like, we take everything so personally, where when we put something out into the world, if it's not accepted and people don't love it, we take it more personally than we probably should.
For sure. But I think that's the starting point. But I mean, you look at like all the. This might be a terrible analogy actually, but like remember like Will Smith talking about like all the movies that flopped. I mean, but he's still the highest paid actor at the end of the day.
Right.
Like Kevin Hart like taking L after L after L, like takes a lot of L's, but he gets a lot of W's at the same time. You know what I mean? Like I mean, you got to just put it. It's actually a really interesting dichotomy, and that is very much like a sports philosophy too. Where it's like where you're on the court, like you take it like your fucking life's on the line, but once the game's over. You have to like wipe your fucking
right, and you got to keep moving. And it's tough, and most people don't like music. Is actually a pretty tangible, like metric driven
sales
job. Like where you could see sales, you could see downloads, you could how many people are going to your shows, all that stuff. You can more tangibly see. Just like in sports, like are you scoring more points per game this year than last year? Are you is your average higher?
People never really talk about that. Like
really?
Definitely. I mean, I'm just so numbers oriented that like I always think of music as like a metrics thing. I always think of music as like I always think of music as like, I mean, this is the. I remember I actually had some fans take me out to dinner after doing like a private concert, and this might be perceived the wrong way, but I do stand by it. Where it's like, you can go to the store and buy 2 CDs at once. You can support 2 artists at once, but with streaming, you cannot. You cannot stream 2 artists at the exact same time. So we are fighting each other. Like I am in competition with my artists now.
So I'm clear. So what you're saying is basically like I'm either listening to your song or I'm listening to someone else's song.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So like I think there's a more competitive factor than there's ever been, and I love that.
Right, and there's more competition out there. Well, maybe the competition has stayed the same.
So no, there's more competition because the cost of entry has gone down.
Low.
It's gone to zero.
Right, anyone can get in.
It's like I'm just talking right now. Like I'm pursuing aggressively breaking my music in Russia, and I'm pursuing aggressively breaking my music in Germany. And like there are obviously costs to all that, but I'm thinking about it. Like back in the day, you had to be on Universal Records, okay? So you had to be on, say, Universal Records or whatever, and they had a roster of maybe 200 people. You had to be in the top 30 for them to allocate their resources to have a salesperson go out and put your CD in every store in Hamburg and every store in Russia. And then you had someone who had to speak both. Like you had a huge team of people making all this happen. It was very expensive. Like, I mean, like you had to be Michael Jackson to be in every country. You had to be Garth Brooks to be in every country. Like now it's like,
could be anybody.
Anybody, dude, it just happens. Like
anybody. It's like if you can drive a great Instagram profile and you can get a lot of followers and drive people to your music, even if you're the shittiest artist in the world. I mean, look at a lot of these like TikTok stars.
Oh, for sure.
They become huge on TikTok, then all of a sudden they become a top 40 artist where they probably aren't quite that talented.
For sure. Oh no.
But they have all the money and the resources.
They have the resources
and the
to break it really fast. I mean, everything's. Yeah, but that doesn't really work as often as you think it does.
Sure, but
I think for every single one that does work, there's probably like 6,000 that don't work.
At the end of the game, talent always wins. Like you can
in
have
that
a
case,
short
talent doesn't win. In that case, a hit song wins. It's like they have the platform to launch it.
They'll be forgotten though.
Oh yeah, I mean,
right. Like you're a one-hit wonder.
I mean, all we know, TikTok might be taken down, and they lost like 30 million. Do they have their email addresses? Probably not. I don't know. I don't fucking know. Let's go back. So. The initial question was early 20s versus late 20s. For me, I'm definitely very proud of this and definitely ashamed of my lack of ability in the early years is like my ability to collaborate. And then I think this goes back to me trying to wanting to control so much that like I felt like if you collaborated and you made a wrong move, I was so neurotic in the sense that like if we made a wrong version of a song, it was ruined, it was done. It's like no, like it's not true at all. It's like you want to try to rewrite the verse? Oh, sure, I'll rewrite the verse. Is it better?
Talk me through that. Like, so what part of the song would be off?
Nothing's wrong. It's in my head. It's literally all in my head. So it's like, even down to like if I didn't like a certain mix or I didn't like a certain drum sound, I would hear it and I'm like, oh, I don't like that, and it's ruined. Right. I'm like, how the fuck is that?
The average person has no idea.
Yeah, I'm like, you just go back and fix it. Like, right. It's like. It's not done till you say it's done. I always had such a hard time. I'm like, it was chess, and it was like every chess move had to be making like. That I think this goes back to the other thing I'm saying with business in general. Like, I kept thinking every move had to be moving forward, whereas like sometimes nowadays my mentality is like a move where it didn't work is moving forward too, because you now know it doesn't work.
Well, that's why they say done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Like you at least got to put shit out to see how people react to it.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the creation process. I'm not talking about making like I don't have a regret on a single record of mine. I'm talking about like
even as you're creating
I'm talking about as I'm making it.
So as you're making it, there's a note, there's a instrumental, there's a something
just ruins the vibe of the song for me. And this is really like definitely a creative person issue, not a business person issue, where it's like I hear a song a certain way and I don't like it, or I don't like the way my voice sounds, and I'm just like,
I'm done.
Ruins my week. And now I'm just like,
interesting.
And now I'm just like, no, you just rewrite it. You just keep doing it over and over. Like, I'm really, really big on this, and I'm really big now on just like, you want to try this? Do I agree? I absolutely do not agree. But if you want to try it, go for it. And if I don't like it, and like majority of the times I end up being like, oh, you brought this new thing to the table that I didn't even think about. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Well, it's.
I think it's like realizing that you really don't know what the fuck you're doing, and that I think even at the highest level you don't know what you're doing. So it's like being able to curate it's a dance. It's like a fucking dance of like trying things and flowing, and it's like, we've arrived, you know, and you're gonna move forward, and you're gonna move back. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. That's like my forte. Is like I know how to just get it down the fucking river, you know.
So are you more prone to put something? Because one of the things you do that's very unique from what I've seen is like you're constantly putting shit out.
And then like in the rock alternative world, no one does that.
Yeah,
so it's like a very much
you're waiting. I don't know the last J. Cole album he put out. But,
yeah,
just
that's J. Cole. It's a very different situation.
But like when was the last album he put?
3 years. Yeah.
And did he put out any songs in those 3 years? Since
he
this
dropped
new
the
album?
interlude whatever. He dropped the single before the album like 1 week or whatever.
Right. Like most people do that. They do the 2 or 3 years and they throw this perfect album where it's like incredible.
Sure.
But then you take the approach of like, let's just constantly put stuff out there.
Yeah.
Do you feel like when you put a song out, do you feel like it's perfect, or are you like, you know what, this is 95% there, but it's better to be 95% and out versus 100% and not out for another 3 months?
So I don't know if it's perfect. I mean, it's never perfect. That's a no-brainer. It's definitely never perfect. But I know it's done. Like, that's the thing. I definitely know it's done. I've gone back whenever it's been, you know, in the Spotify system and like changed it, but I always know it's done. I never go back and say I wish I didn't. You know, there's a producer named Benny Blanco who's a huge producer, and he has a quote. How do you know when a song is done? He says, like, when you hate the song, you hate yourself, and you absolutely can't listen to it ever again. And like that's such a universal feeling when you're just like, this is done. You know what I mean? So I think the fact that I was forced to put out so much music taught you that, you know?
Sure. Let me kind of ask you a little bit of an off-topic question, then I want to ask you an on-topic question.
Sure.
So off-topic question. I was thinking about this today on my car ride over.
Hit me.
99% of the time when I listen to a new song,
sure,
in the first 2 seconds, I know if I'm going to like it or not.
Really?
Is that a normal thing? And with that in mind, if most people do feel that way, does that change how you produce music? Like literally,
so yes.
Almost always, in the first 2 to 5 seconds, I know if I'm going to like it or not.
Yeah. I mean, I think about that too. I think I skip a song in the first 5 seconds usually.
Like, I just know. I could tell by the beat, the feeling, the flow, whatever that might be. And it's almost bulletproof, where I know right away if I'm going to like it or not.
Yeah. Well, definitely. For me, that matters in terms of like what I do. I mean, I almost always never have intros. If you listen to my music always goes
like right into it.
I start singing. And like I'm a really, really, really firm believer writing wise that the first line is the most important line of the entire song. Like it's a Tom Petty philosophy. And so yeah.
So break that down a little bit for me. So the different philosophies are one, kind of like a light intro to the song. Or
songs are becoming shorter than 3 minutes. I think people are getting right to the point.
Yeah, so people right away now more than ever is like you're getting right to...
I mean, my thing is like if you're a fan of mine, you have to like my voice. If you don't like my voice, you shouldn't listen to my music. Number 2, you have to like my lyrics. And if my first line is my most provocative lyric, then that's going to either yes or no. I mean, I guess the counter argument for that is like sometimes, I mean, big 80s records, the chorus sells the whole thing. You know what I mean? Sometimes it takes 50 seconds to get there.
Is that a good or a bad thing? And has that changed since the 80s to today where we have the attention span of a goldfish?
It takes 2 minutes and 30, like what's it called? Elton John's Tiny Dancer. The chorus doesn't come for like 2 minutes.
Right,
and
the build up.
It builds forever. But I think it goes to Testament, like Tiny Dancer. Like the second that song comes in, Elton sounds awesome. The piano,
right.
You're just hooked.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy at Spotify who runs Urban. I don't even know why I'm quoting this guy. He always talks about like like I just need one taste of the soup to know whether I'm gonna like the soup or not. And that's the way a lot of people feel.
So for them, it's the same type of way where they know almost instantly.
I think everyone feels that way.
Right. So I'm sure artists like you have in mind right away, like I got to hook this person in the first 5 seconds.
But I think about
especially when you're not like
I'm not as mindful
of J. Cole
as you think I am, but I'm thinking about it now. It's like I always write the verse first, which is backwards. A lot of people write the chorus first. I always write the verse first, and like I'm really, really big on like picking up a guitar and improvising, and just like I just know when it feels like a Skrizzly record. I just like instantly know, and I think that me doing that as my starting point to creating the song is the answers your question. It's like if it lights the bulb up. Okay, this actually goes. I've definitely said this before. It's like because my music is authentic and it's consistent. I have me and my fans are like-minded. You know what I mean? So it's one of those. I mean, I'm sure so many big artists are like that, where they know if it works for them, it's gonna work for their audience. You know what I mean? So it's funny. I am definitely catering to everything you're saying, but because I'm doing it mindlessly, it's almost more authentic.
Right. It's subconsciously. You're not trying to create the science behind the hook in the first 5 seconds.
Well, your response is subconscious as well. You're not being like piano,
right?
drum.
Oh, for sure.
Exactly. So it has to be mindless. Like it has to be mindless. I'm just. I think I've said that before. Like the music has to satisfy you mindlessly, and like there's a big difference between like simple and simple-minded. Like something should be simple. It shouldn't be simple-minded.
Sure.
Like and it should just like mindlessly satisfy you. Then like if it takes no effort for me to do it and create it, or mindless whatever, like the audience will understand it that much easier, you know? So that's that. So you want to go back to the other topic? What was it?
Yeah, I now have another thing I want to go back to before I get into what my other question was to me. But now with that songwriting piece in particular, how has your songwriting changed from your early 20s to late 20s? Has it changed?
Awesome question.
Other than just new life experiences.
Yeah, you know, the content will obviously change, and then like the point of view of the narrative will change as you get older. I mean, I'm like literally like writing music as an aging person. Like I age with my audience. But repeat that one more time because I have the answer. Just say it one more time.
Yeah, how has your songwriting changed from your early 20s to late 20s?
Early 20s to late 20s. This is a stupid because like I feel like the craft of songwriting hasn't changed at all. Mm-hmm. Like I still have I do a lot of improvisation. I'm really heavy on improvisation. Like I'm really big on improvisation. I mean, I still use a lot of the same structures I was using in 2014. So I'd say the craft is whatever. And I would like to say the muscle got stronger, but I don't think it got stronger. I think songwriting is one of those things where I kind of got lucky and was like, I'm not naturally good at music by any means, but that was something I was a little naturally good at. But I think the thing I learned was like, it's almost funny. It's like, in my mind, there's the Skrizzly songwriting factory, and there's a guy who runs the factory, and there's a bunch of little people that do the actual manual labor. And what I think
you just painted a great visual, by the way.
It's a weird visual.
Keep going.
And what I kind of learned was like, the guy who was running the factory was kind of a pussy back in the day, and like he just didn't know. Or he was just like a stoner. He just showed up when he showed up, or he didn't show up when he didn't show up, and it's just like he had no control over the factory. And I hate to say factory; it's an awful word, but like
I like the way I.
But like nowadays, like I just say it's confidence. Like it's definitely a confident thing, and I don't mean a cocky thing. It's funny. I think I was probably cockier back in the day, but I actually had less control.
That's usually the case. You're typically cockier when you're more insecure and don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. Like I just kept getting lucky over and over again back in the day. Back in the day, I'd write about 2-3 songs a year. Now I write about 25. So it's like back then I thought it was awesome, but now I'm like, okay, I know how to show up to work and get the factory fucking running. You know?
Right. So time out. You just totally contradict yourself. You're not better since 2014. Yet you went from pumping out 2 to 3 songs a year to 20
I'm saying
plus.
the craft. I don't think the craft got better.
So was it you were just lazier then?
No, I was less in control. The factory runner just wasn't
So like
showing.
now you're just more efficient, basically.
Yes, I'd say more efficient.
Gotcha.
Definitely more efficient. Like I don't let good ideas slip away. I have my systems. I'm in my car writing down lyrics.
Right. You're more of a pro. Before you were like a, you
I had
were
no idea
you
what
were
I was
young,
doing.
you were like,
and I was
you're like a
capable of
rookie.
writing good songs. Like I was like the winner of like the grand prize,
Sure.
whatever, this huge songwriting competition where everyone went platinum except me. So it was like the idea was that I knew what I was doing, but I just didn't know what I was doing.
Yep.
It was really funny. Like the songs wrote me. I didn't write the songs. Now I feel like I write the songs. Great ideas pass through me. I get inspired. I mean, a lot of it, like I hear a song on the radio or I hear a song, I'm just like, they're doing something really interesting there. Let me pull over, get the guitar out, and flesh this idea out. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's interesting. So you'll be driving, let's say, to Tennessee, right?
Sure,
You're going to Tennessee,
totally.
you hear this new song. You have this thought that pops in your head.
Oh, yeah.
You'll just pull over on the highway, you'll take your guitar out, you start recording.
Get the
and just
voice
play.
memo. Yeah, absolutely. All the time.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any of those? Like, I would love to see, like, listen to one of those voice memos for one of your, like, hit songs now.
I mean,
that
I
everyone knows
have
and
tons of
loves.
voice memos that they're literally improvised and, like, they're identical.
That's a cool. That's
yeah,
a
I want
very,
to release this with my fan club, actually. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I just think that's such an interesting piece, like, because everyone always sees the finished product.
Oh, yeah, but I think actually this goes back to the other thing I'm saying. The reason I wasn't efficient was because I was afraid to mess up. Like, I would be afraid to record. Yeah, I was afraid to record vocals that were going to be bad.
Right. You're afraid to take your shots.
I was afraid to take the shot, exactly. Now I'm just like, we're going to shoot 8 million shots and we're going to refine the best ones.
And the truth is when you're in your world or in really any world, for
Yeah.
the most part, I want to say that with a big caveat, but
Yeah.
you get so used to failure. Like when you're an entrepreneur, when you're starting a
yeah.
business, you get so used to failure. When you're a musician, an athlete,
I mean, I think about like there are life-changing phone calls you get that you dream of in your early 20s. And then if they fall through, it's like
the end of the world.
end of the world. I get that like once a month. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like honestly, like once a month, like once a month, or even like now I'm just like, it was 98% there, but it wasn't the 2, so I can't do it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But that's definitely a big difference between.
But that's such a good thing. The more that we
my
can
God.
put ourselves out there, the more we can fuck up and have these failures. It shows
Yeah.
you're taking your shots. But so
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now with all that, so
Sure.
you're from early 20s to late 20s. Now you're becoming an old man, about to hit 30.
Yeah, very old.
What would you say is and it's funny too, like 30 is such a pup. Like I'm 30.
Yeah, I
obviously
know.
we just talked about it. I feel younger and stronger than ever in a lot of ways.
I mean, I'm
But-
glad I've dealt with so much failure in my 20s. I'm
Oh, for
very,
sure.
very happy about that.
But what are you like what are you hoping will define your 30s? Like which one of those learnings are you hoping that will help define your 30s?
I want to, like, teamwork. You know what I mean? Like, being able to, like, I work with a lot of people in a given day. Like, a lot. I think a lot of my fans don't see that. So all the people I work with, shout out to you guys. I work with a lot of people on a lot of progress that people don't even know I'm, like, involved in. And, like, I think, like, my ability, I don't want to say manage in the sense that I'm above you, but my ability to manage people around me. Like, I would love for there to be 100 people. That sounds ambitious. Like, just keep the fucking wheels turning all the time. And then, the one job I have is making music and performing music,
Well, keep going on that. So like what teamwork wise, like are you hoping to just collaborate on more projects focused on music?
I mean more
on-
outside of music. In terms of making music, I actually work with very few people, and like I don't plan on adding many more. I'm just more like other like business ventures I have. Like I really would love, like I am the CEO of a new company that I'm working on, and it has like a massively high ceiling, and I just have one partner and then one silent partner. So I'm the center of it, and I would love to have 25 people working at it and me be a good person in charge. You know what I mean? Like I would love that the things I've learned in collaboration in my 20s to, I think that's where most people fail, honestly. Like I really think that's where most people fail. It's like you might have money coming in, but you can't manage the people around me. Like how do you keep them fucking motivated? Like it's really fucking difficult.
Well, that's also because we tend to micromanage as entrepreneurs. We
Sure.
think we can always do it better than somebody else.
Yeah.
So we just try to do everything. And when you're trying to do everything, it limits you from doing what you should be focused on. And that's why whenever I'm advising like startups and small business, I always talk about you got to figure out ways to delegate. You got to figure out ways
Delegating
to
is the exact word I was looking to use. Like I want to be great at delegating.
which is
you know?
a
Very
hell of a
difficult.
difficult thing to do.
Very difficult. Yeah.
So your 30s, you want to be focused more on you being the leader, you focused on your creativity and ability to just lead and inspire a great group of people where you can all
Exactly.
win together.
Exactly. That's like exactly where I'm at. Because I don't think like what's like the business philosophy of just focusing on your strengths. You know what I mean? Like if my strength is the music side of it, like I need to just focus on that.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So it's about finding people that have their strengths and then applying that to everything else, you know?
So what do you got for your birthday?
Wow. I haven't thought that through yet.
It's coming up.
I know. I haven't thought about it. I thought about going to Atlantic City.
I feel like that's probably where
I'm probably going to go there for 2 days.
It.
I actually go to Jenkinson's Aquarium in Point Pleasant every birthday. I didn't go last year because of COVID. So I'll probably go there. I'll see some penguins and shit. I don't know. I've been doing that since I was like 4.
Oh, that's great.
Keep it simple. I'll go to Atlantic City. I'll eat a
tradition.
steak. Walk on the board. Dude, I don't even fucking know. It's like I won't be drinking myself into absolute oblivion.
Yep.
So I won't be doing that.
It's funny, from first podcast to whatever number this is now.
We've already made progress. We're making progress.
First podcast was like too many shots in Saratoga.
Yeah.
And now it's no more drinking.
No more drinking. Trying to think. Yeah, I don't have any plans.
I'm the same way. Like I'm not a big birthday. I don't like to make plans. I don't like to make a big deal of it. But John, who we both know, one of my good buddies in Boston,
did it big.
Had this rented this massive mansion in California for his 30th, and invited anyone and everyone, and just had a big blow up for it. Where you want to go to an aquarium?
I want to go to an aquarium, walk on the boardwalk,
see some penguins.